So Ruth, you're about done with a 5-month program of answering the call to radical faithfulness on sort of the intersection of faith and activism.
Yeah.
And I'd just be interested in, when you first heard about the program, in what ways did it speak to you? Why did you think it might be valuable to you or your work in Denver?
Well, I got an email from Professor Sarah Willie LeBreton, who's at Swarthmore, telling me about it because she's on the board here. And she and I had begun a conversation through my son, who was a freshman last year at Swarthmore, and she has also Denver roots. And she knew about the work that I was doing in the Black Lives Matter movement in Denver. And so she sent it to me and said, just thought this might be interesting to you or some of your folks in your parish or in the movement there. And at the time, we were just neck deep in some actions, and I was maybe 9 months into that work and predictably exhausted and a little frenetic. And so, and I was also experiencing kind of some tension between my work as a parish priest in a pretty progressive parish, but nevertheless, I would say not a parish full of activists, and then my activist work. And so I was realizing this need I had to kind of weave those together more effectively and to get some rest and to figure out how to do this work as a marathon and not a sprint. And so all of that kind of appealed to me. That's great. About the course.
So what were the highlights or the takeaways? In what ways did it prove valuable to you?
Well, I have to say, as I was driving to the airport to come to this, when my husband Nathan said, so what are you going to take with you from this? And I spent the rest of the car ride. I lost track of how many things I named. But the first thing that came out of my mouth, I want to say, is I said, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is Matthew Ormsted's facilitation skills. And I just have to name that because he has such a gift with this kind of in-the-moment emotional intelligence that I always fancied myself as a pretty decent facilitator, but boy, I have been learning from that, particularly with really rough material and how he deepens that conversation. I've experienced the facilitation across the board from all of the faculty as having just this deepening capacity in me and in us as a group. So I'm very grateful for what each of you has brought into our circle with that. And that's really the first and primary thing, because that's the added value over just reading the books as a book list, right? Or just even doing exercises at home, is the experiential component. And I think if you're coming into this program and thinking, boy, there's going to be a great book list, that's true. But the primary reason you choose this over getting the syllabus is what gets constructed when we gather. So I would go from there to the community of learners that I've been part of, and the unlikely, gift of people's different personalities and their different issues and causes that they're passionate about. And those have been really instructive to me, and at times irritating in a way that's helpful, like the rock and the oyster or something, the grain and the oyster. It's just been helping me get refined to kind of ask myself, what is it about that person's way of showing up that's bugging me today? And, to kind of turn that back on myself. And I guess that's true with any group process, but I think around activist issues, sometimes we imagine we don't have to do that work because we're also aligned around a cause. Then I would say the historical component, the videos, the films, the teachings that have come out of, whether it's looking at, Saul Alinsky's work or reading Daniel Hunter's book around kind of looking at the civil rights movement and realizing, that there are all of the different players and the intricacies and the complexities of how they came to things, and then comparing that to what we've been doing in Denver. And bringing some of that back into the conversations in Black Lives Matter 5280 has been really helpful to me.
So if you were recommending this, is there anything additional you would say about why people might find this program valuable to their lives and work?
Well, I think that we make an investment like this that we know before we know that we need something. So it was a bit crazy for me, as you know, to add one more thing into my life. And I, like other members, have scrambled sometimes to keep up and all of that. But I think that one of the things in radical activist work is that we really talk the talk of self-care and of deep spiritual grounding better than we walk the walk. And I am totally guilty on that front. And I needed to do some real sorting of my priorities, and the faculty kind of pierced that for me, burst that wide open, and as well as peers, but particularly the faculty has asked me to look at some of that. And I think if you are at a place where you're barely keeping it together, and I think most people are doing activist work or doing it in addition to whatever's putting food on the table, which means most people are exhausted and stretched too thin, then this is a place to really come and ground oneself and really think about, again, the marathon, the long haul, and that it's really kind of an ego trip to think you're doing it as a loner, and that you have to be grounded and accountable in community. So I would really encourage people, and plus the setting. I mean, every time I've come, as you know, I've kind of had a little fall apart time, and that to me speaks to how sacred the setting is and how nurturing it is, and the food and everything, the grounds, the art studio, all of that becomes part of, grounding oneself.